Yeah, okay. Hello everyone, welcome to our movie. Our project name is Green Areas, which is a plan to integrate more nature and natural elements into cities worldwide to prevent flooding, in order to achieve SDG 3, 11 and 13. The name itself stands for Globally Relevant Evolution of the Environment in Non-Rural Areas. Flooding is the most frequent natural disaster, accounting for a quarter of the global economic losses due to natural disasters. In 2019, 1.2 billion people were at risk. Due to climate change, population growth, and urbanization, these numbers will only increase. It is estimated that 1.6 billion people will be at risk by 2050, representing 20% of the world's population. Floods are a global problem, and they mostly affect coastal cities and citizens. A few noticeable cities that are at risk of flooding are Mumbai, Ho Chi Minh City, New York, and Shanghai. As these are enormous population centers, it is necessary to solve the problem of urban floods. In order to solve this problem of flooding, one frequently talked about solution is natural flood management. Natural flood management uses the environment as a means to reduce the impact of heavy rains and/or floods from the sea. Urbanization heavily reduces the capabilities of the soil to absorb water, and natural flood management mitigates this. Well, how does the problem of flooding relate to the SDGs? Well, first of all, it relates to SDG 3, good health and well-being, because solving the problem will result in less deaths by flooding, will decrease water and air pollution, and increase mental health. It also relates to SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, because solving the problem of flooding will increase the resilience of cities against environmental threats. Integrating more nature into cities will also result in more green space. It finally relates to SDG 13, climate action, because it again increases the resilience and adaptive capabilities of communities.
To develop our pathway, we looked into 4 seeds. Each of these is an example of how flood and water management can be done in a more natural way. The first case is called Bay Greenways in Houston, Texas. Partially due to the rapid expansion of the city, the frequency of major flood events in the area has been considerably high. The Bayou Greenways project aims to address this issue and many more by constructing parklands along many of the bayous. Notable about this project is the sheer amount of stakeholders working together, showing that cooperation is vital to the success of such projects. Our second example is the restoration of the Lai River in Taiwan. This exclusively government-managed project is included not only adaptation of the infrastructure, but also education. Due to how densely populated the area is, there was less room for parklands, and so the focus was more put into removing illegal buildings from over the river, as well as increasing the channel's cross-section wherever possible. This project was thus helpful in considering how natural flood management could be implemented in areas with limited space, which is not uncommon when looking at urban areas. The third project we looked at for an example was the Indian Bandwash Greenbelt in Scottsdale, Arizona. A prominent feature is that in every part of the development, the concept of safe to fail rather than fail-safe construction was considered. As opposed to putting all time and effort into preventing flooding, the Indian Bandwash Greenbelt is designed to withstand minor flooding without any damage, and for major floods to do minimal damage, which is easy to repair. This means that the infrastructure reduces flood damage not only by reducing flood frequency and severity, but also by making the environment flood resistant. The final project we looked into was the Gloucester Rivers Improvement Project in Gloucester, England. With this project, we were particularly interested in the way local communities were included. At the beginning, people were asked what they wanted from the water bodies, what should change, and what issues they saw. During the project, information from the local population was used as data for computer modeling, and effort was also put into education and awareness surrounding the rivers and related topics. This inclusion is very important and plays a very important role in making changes sustainable. So altogether, we learned that in order to implement natural flood management in urban areas in an inclusive and sustainable way, it would take more than simply constructing parks around water. Design needs to be focused not only on addressing the frequency and severity of floods, but also with dealing with reducing the damage they do when they do occur. In addition to that, projects should include the local population in every step of the project, from early design to the final product. And education about water and flood management should be more common and prominent in order to support this change on a bigger scale.
Challenges and opportunities. One factor that ought to be present for the niche system to mature into the new incumbent system is inclusive research on urban greening to prevent floods in both rural and urban areas, and research adjusted to the different countries. What is achievable in one country could be not feasible at all for another country. Another factor that should be present is national governance. Countries in Africa, but also states in the US, lack national governance. This assumes that every country can handle problems on their own, whereas water pollution and floodings are not only one city's responsibility. Moreover, it is important to engage the community by enabling them to share their opinions and educating them on the importance of resilience. There are 3 landscape conditions influencing the current system. The first one is climate change. The more crises occur, the more cities acknowledge that they are not resilient enough to cope with environmental crisis. As the frequency of extreme weather events and heavy rainfall is increased by climate change, cities should invest more in natural flood management projects. The second landscape condition is urbanization. This is a hindering landscape condition for the development of urban greening in cities. Urbanization also influences the resilience of cities because often open green spaces are transformed into housing. Cities become more vulnerable by urbanization, as plants take up water, but asphalted roads and empty roofs do not. Land in cities is much more expensive than in rural areas, and therefore, often housing is prioritized in cities. The third landscape condition is COVID-19. Currently, the world is facing a global pandemic caused by the coronavirus. As the virus is affecting everyday life, aspects of the current socio-ecological system we live in are being revised. An example is working from home instead of commuting every day, but more important for our seats is the increased appreciation for urban greening and the realization of people that environmental crises like climate change or the coronavirus do not care about boundaries.
We can use maps in order to find the most suitable location for natural flood management projects. This map, for example, shows the population per country that is annually affected by floods. You can see that the weaker economies, like in Africa and Southeast Asia, are often worse off than westernized countries. For example, in the Netherlands, only a small share of its population is affected annually, while its geographic location would predict otherwise. This suggests that it's more beneficial to implement natural flood management projects in lesser economically developed countries, as this affects more people. This map can also help decide the location of natural flood management projects. This map shows the percentage of the urban population living in slums. Slums are usually in geographic depressions and do not have adequate sewage systems. A combination of these two can lead to these areas flooding in times of heavy rain or heavy tides. This map can be used to find the most suitable location for our project, as countries where a large share of the population lives in slums can benefit the most from urban flood management. These are, again, countries particularly in Africa and to a lesser extent in Southeast Asia. A combination of these two maps should be used to find the most suitable locations of natural flood management projects that affect the most people.
Our transition goal is achieved when 90% of the urban areas worldwide use natural flood management techniques by 2030, as in line with the SDGs. The current incumbent system is one of heavily modified water bodies, unsafe cities with a fail-safe focus and pollution. Due to the enabling conditions of urbanization, COVID-19, and climate change, people are becoming more and more aware of the environmental issues. This opens up opportunities for natural flood protection to be implemented in many cities around the globe. However, research and advertising are needed for people to start feeling protected with these new techniques. If this succeeds, the system of fail-safe with concrete channels and piping will be gone. We imagine a future in which natural flood protections become the new incumbent system. They can look like beautiful parks in busy cities that are accessible for everyone, provide a place for leisure and exercise, increase body diversity, decrease heat, and simultaneously clean air, overall improving the quality of life in cities. In this future, education and awareness is created about the importance of sustainability and climate action. And the research is done to further improve the green infrastructure techniques. That is why we think that our project is part of a global relevant evolution in the environment in non-rural areas. Here you can find all the sources of the images we use for this presentation. Thank you for your time.